On this episode of China Uncensored, it's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine. Hi, welcome to China Uncensored. I'm your host, Chris Chappell. War between the US and China. Many of you might think it would go like this. America! Good luck, yeah, because that's probably not going to happen. At least according to this report from the RAND Corporation, it would actually be ruinous, intense, and destructive. And it would also probably be long and drawn out. Sounds familiar somehow. By the way, thinking through the unthinkable apparently describes both war with China and Jared Leto's method acting. Anyway, back to the more appealing subject, a war with China. The report was commissioned by the US Army. They love a good game of worst-case scenario, which is why the Pentagon actually has a plan for a zombie outbreak. And one of the report's authors is former Chief Intelligence Advisor to Barack Obama, David C. Gompert. So, depending on your political leanings, he either knows exactly what he's talking about or is a complete idiot. The report does acknowledge that a war between the US and China is very unlikely. But even though the US's military lead on China right now may look like Usain Bolt, in 10 years, the US might not be awkwardly smiling. China's A2AD, or anti-access and area denial technology, is making breakthroughs. And by making breakthroughs, I mean successfully knocking off technology that China steals from the US. China's A2AD technology includes things like land attack and anti-ship ballistic and cruise missiles, a surface-to-air missile network, and anti-satellite weapons, plus things like cyber warfare and China's lesser-known psychological warfare tactics, like this secret experimental government footage shows. As you can see, that Chinese opera cover of Rolling in the Deep has been carefully and highly weaponized. And what has the US developed in this critical field? Wow, it's hard to tell which is more destructive. And as China's technological breakthroughs continue, it will be, as the report says, increasingly difficult for the United States to gain military operational dominance and victory, even in a long war. By 2025, US losses could range from significant to heavy, and this would be a prolonged and destructive yet inconclusive war. The good news is the report suggests that neither side would be willing to use nuclear weapons. I mean, this isn't a game of civilization with a rampaging Gandhi. But there are plenty of hotspots for war with China, and each side is incentivized to strike first. In other words, if something goes wrong, like a Chinese vessel accidentally fires on a Japanese ship in the East China Sea, it doesn't pay to take a moment and think rationally. After all, only the fate of the world hangs in the balance. However, not everyone agrees with the prediction that China's military is catching up to the US, or will be there even by the year 2025. Sure, China has upped its military spending to $155 billion a year, but America still spends about 4 times as much. And I hope at least a few billion of that goes into developing military-grade earplugs. So what do you think? Would war with China be worse than the zombie apocalypse? How should the US respond to the threat of weaponized Chinese opera? Thanks for watching this episode of China Uncensored. Once again, I'm your host, Chris Chappell. See you next time. Though you might know China for its investment in clean energy, the Chinese regime wants to help the United Kingdom build its dream nuclear power plant. It's that time again when countries around the world set aside their differences and come together to decide which country is the greatest through gladiatorial combat.